Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to this exclusive fireside chat with two industry leaders. I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead ETHR World, and your host for this session. This fireside chat is a part of a thought leadership series on mapping the business impact of learning. And I'm delighted to introduce the two speakers who will be enlightening us and advancing our knowledge in the subject of enterprise skilling and what it means to not only meet business goals, but also employee goals. Please join me in welcoming Anjali Rao, Senior HR Director at Intel Technology India. Anjali is a human resource professional with 13 plus years of industry experience. She leads HR at Intel India with overall accountability for developing strong HR partnership and value for all of Intel India, which is a 9,000 employee strong organization spanning research and development, sales and marketing, enterprise IT, and business enabling organizations. She brings well-developed relationship building and management skills, persuasive communication skills, and high sense of result orientation. We also have Dallas Krishnan, MD for Coursera Enterprise, India, Australia, and New Zealand. Dallas believes in enabling enterprises and universities to learn without limit through Coursera platform. In his view, the power of lifelong learning and upskilling is critical to the digital transformation of companies. He has worked for leading organizations like Salesforce, Amazon Web Services, IBM. He has worked extensively across India and APAC markets. Once again, welcome Anjali and Dallas to this exclusive fireside chat.
Thank you.
We know today change is the only constant in the business world. While change was always taking place, the pandemic only made it more dramatic and imperative. To that point, my first question for Anjali is, we all strive to develop a winning employee strategy. It is easier said than done. One aspect of your business that has changed drastically after the pandemic and required you to change a practice for good, for an effective employee experience, specifically in terms of organizational learning. One cause and effect example.
So I think absolutely, you said it, Pooja. The pandemic has really opened very many different experiences for all of us, employees, managers, leaders, organizations, right? And at Intel, we always strive to bring innovation in our processes, the way we work. And we believe it's very, very important for employees to grow in whatever they do, considering they spend so much time working. And we saw a lot of changes come in the past 2 years due to the pandemic, some good, some not so good. Technology has evolved literally overnight to adapt to what we call as the new normal. Products and services today that were once upon a time somewhat, like an option, today have become a reality and almost a need, right? And somewhere scarce as well. Now, for us in HR, we've always talked about employee engagement and keeping this workforce motivated for a common goal. And through this pandemic, right, we have continued to focus on trying our best to engage with our employees with the newer ways, not cutting back because we are not on site or we cannot see each other, really doubling down on using technology, reaching out to them, using leader voices, manager voices, having lot of engagement through the virtual methods, right? I also want to say that we are in the middle of what I call as witnessing what I call as intergenerational diversity, right? Where you have employees of different generations in your workforce. And it is therefore different strokes for different folks. What appeals to one may not necessarily appeal to another. How one engages with one set of population has to be very different with how one engages with another set of population, right? And I think this is where in the learning space, there has been a huge shift. Traditionally, you would want people to come into classrooms attend trainings, have the opportunity to see one another face to face. But today, I think it's come down to a lot of what I call as self-paced learning methodologies, where you have to, as an organization, provide that platform, provide different ways by which people can engage with the learning content and they learn. Right. Not to mention that there is a lot of learning that happens on the job. And one has to understand that when you're talking about learning on the job, you also have to realize that in the pandemic, not everybody was on site. Not everybody had the luxury of talking to one another and learning. So how do you continue to facilitate that? And that's where I think the role of technology came in, right? Where we said that can our IT teams provide us those tools and ways by which people have access to each other's content? Can we use technology to engage with one another where the learning from one another continues despite the pandemic, right? The last thing I'll also say is this whole notion of autonomy. And I think I want to talk about autonomy in conjunction to your question of engagement, because I think today, the pandemic has made us realize, with the blurring of our work boundaries, work and life boundaries, you need to give your employees the time and space. You need to open up different avenues for them to decide which one is better for them versus the other, right? And I think that's a huge way to engage your workforce, because I think at the core of it, when you have a workforce that feels like they have the autonomy of thought, of their time, I think it automatically leads to higher engagement, higher productivity, higher learning, and therefore higher innovation, right? So I think I would just conclude by saying there aren't one size fits all solutions in the space of employee engagement. I really think you need to invest in tools and ways by which you have a constant pulse of what employees are feeling, thinking, and you're able to recognize those signs of a disengaged employee or a workforce and quickly take steps and measures, to counter that.
Very valid points there, Anjali. I totally agree. The technology really helped to plug in that gap when people were working remotely and the office. And, giving employees autonomy is definitely a change that we are seeing rapidly, coming in the workforce. Dallas, during the pandemic and in the last 2 years, leadership has played a very prominent role. And definitely organizations which have seen STEEL leadership has really been ahead in the curve. To that point, my question for you is, how are you ensuring that Coursera is developing resources and programs that are empowering leaders to enable their teams to adapt, innovate, and lead in a rapidly changing world? These programs are surely contributing to a much higher engaged workforce.
I think probably this is last 18 to 24 months, we probably have seen the maximum evolution and test for leadership in many ways, right? And at across levels. And so I'll come to two parts to this. One is in the context of core skills that we see, and we see the context of both human skills and digital skills as two priority areas where organizations are constantly looking at, right? World Economic Forum talks about these as two primary areas where how the skills will evolve by the time by the 2025, right? So there's a WEF Future of Jobs, Future of Skills report talks about these two primary digital skills and people skills, or human skills, not even people skills. Human skills is very primary. Now, when you think about human skills, there are stuff that is around personal development, and there is another part which is around developing an organization, right? So what we have done is at Coursera is that we've kind of packaged this into academies, right? So we have tech academies like a cloud, which is very simple to do, right? Data, cloud, software engineering, so on and so forth. Then we have academies around functional areas like marketing and finance and so on and so forth. But leadership was something that came up as through our discussions and engagement with our customers. This came as the number 2 priority of most leadership L&D teams across the world. I said this is number 2, or close to 88% of the responses said this is a number two priority. So what we then did was we actually then packaged by working with our, the top B schools, 10 of the top 20 B schools in the world, author on Coursera. We partnered with them and launched what was known as a Leadership Academy. And we brought it, the way this came out is it came out in 4 dimensions. So there is the first dimensions around leading yourself, which is managing the self, right? Becoming better at communication, soft skills, and other aspects, where you have to lead yourself in order to perform in your job. The second aspect that was built around this was around leading, what we call as leading people, right? Starts with something as simple as new managers, and then leading complex organizations, diverse organizations, leading remote teams. There are many areas of skills that are becoming more and more important as you lead people, right? Then there is a differentiated part which is around leading organizations, right? Now, as organizations are evolving, and technology is one of the aspects which is disrupting or enabling or changing the industries that all of us operate in, right? So around that, leading an organization, and this comes where core leadership skills around, taking the company, the strategic thinking, those aspects of skills that come there. And the fourth one that came was around leading transformation, because transformation is at the core of most, successful organizations which needs to continuously reshape themselves over the period of the journey or the life cycle of the organization. So leading transformation is a core skill that, especially in senior leaders, is an important area that we found, right? That includes something as simple as, agile skills in terms of project managing, or in the context of, design thinking, in the context of reimagining a customer process or an internal process or any other function that they're doing. So these were the 4 pillars under which the academy was developed. And we're seeing great traction with our customers, because that's what we also do is that one is the content that goes underneath it, which comes from the top universities like Princeton and Yale and so on and so forth. But along with that, we have combined that with a lot of hands-on tools, right? When we think of, there's a hands-on project on BCG Matrix from BCG itself, right? Now, in a strategic thinking area, that's the core aspect many leaders are involved in, right? So, or even a simple modeling on Excel, right? So there are these hands-on skills that come along with the courses that come from the top courses. So that's the way we are evolving. That's the way we are seeing how the leadership has evolved and how learning is evolving around those areas.
Continuing on the same topic, Anjali, the next question for you is, we are in an era where leaders are rethinking work, workforce, and workplaces to be able to accept the next curve. How are you driving this initiative at Intel?
Sure. I'll start by saying that the pandemic forced us to rethink how we work, and Intel is no exception. I would say it compressed a decade's worth of change into months and demanded from us new ways to work, new ways to collaborate, interact, and yet continue to deliver to the business, right? And I think this also presented an opportunity that has compelled us to reinvent what it means to work at Intel, redefine productivity goals, and also create an environment where our people, our teams, and partners can continue to rely on us because we are able to execute. And therefore, in line with that, what we've developed is really a flexible and a dynamic workforce model, to answer your question, Pooja. And this basically enables each of us to bring our best into the Intel workplace. And this means that we're also driving innovation and continuing to focus on reigniting our culture, such that we continue to win in whatever we set out to. And therefore, in line with that, right, I'll say that the employee is still at the center and continues to be our top priority. The safety and the well-being of our workforce continues to be Intel's top priority. And then, in Intel, we have a global pandemic leadership team that was established, that has been in place for several years. And they are the ones that we've been working with to provide the guidance of how do we really engage, how do we make sure that we are adhering to workplace norms during a pandemic. And at the same time, while it's the PLT providing us guidance internally, we also are very clear about the fact that we want to adhere to local government, local health authorities norms when it comes to how we want people to come back in, how frequently, when, what are the protocols, etc., right? And I think in line with that, and it's less about, I'm not going to say so much about reopening as much as it's going to be about, we will reopen and everybody will reopen, right? The pandemic will eventually get over or it will start declining. And I think really at that time, what we want to be able to show and what we want our employees to experience is really a workplace where there is flexibility, we are going with the hybrid model. We have sort of employees that need to be on site, and these are people who really work in labs and factory settings where we need them to be on site. We will have employees who can and absolutely do their jobs remotely in the comfort of their homes. And obviously now for those employees, we are going to look at setting them up for success, right? Where they have access to technology, they have access to comfortable ways of working from home, and they can access camera, etc. And then we have folks that fall into the middle bucket, which is the hybrid work model, where the job requires them to come into the workplace, but the duration and the time that they need to spend at the workplace is something that they really need to work out with their manager in line with the goals they have, in line with their work. And to support this, we want to create workplaces that really become examples where it's not about coming and occupying a desk as much as it's really about coming into office to collaborate, to innovate, to sort of brainstorm together, to have that FaceTime connect. And yet with that, you have your little time, your space to go off and do what you need to do, right? We really believe that for the kind of business that Intel is in, innovation is at the core of it. It's at the heart of it, right? And it is the world of technology is evolving so much that our engineers have to constantly have that mind space, have that freedom, have that autonomy to innovate while they are executing and getting products and projects out of the door. And to that end, we believe this kind of a flexible work model, and given that the pandemic confirmed to us that you can actually perform certain tasks from the luxury of your home. And at the same time, we also know that employees came to us and told us that, hey, we still want to come into the workplace when we want to come in. So can we have that kind of a middle ground where we're able to accommodate the two? So that's really how we are looking at what everybody calls as the post-pandemic era for Intel is going to be. I'll also end by saying that there is a lot of trial around this, right? And it is a lot about listening to our employees, listening to their voices, listening to their experiences, in sites where we've had the luxury to open it up a little bit more. We've done that. We've gone and pulsed employees to say, hey, what's working, what's not working, tell us how we can make this better, and constantly sort of evolving this to make it as best as possible, to support the kind of work that Intel does and to get that employee productivity to the best.
Sure, Anjali, and I totally agree, that this is all very evolving. So when you talk about, there is certain workforce who will be working from home and some will be in the premises, and there will be a hybrid model. So Dallas, amidst all these different formats of working, how do you ensure that, the skilling agenda of an organization that helps to, like Anjali said, innovation is very central to whatever you do in your organization. So how do you ensure that innovation continues and skilling contributes to the overall business performance in this hybrid working situation?
Sure. So first and foremost, thank you, Anjali. I guess some great perspectives and some I guess you said it really well when you said that the jury is not yet out on this one, right? Not many people know. I know that there have been leaders talking about X percentage of workforce will never return, but I don't think people still know, right? 18 months out into the pandemic, I do feel the need to get back to office, even to do the mundane job, just to get a break, right? So thank you for the wonderful thoughts there. Now, coming to the skilling aspect, Pooja, what we are starting to see here is skilling is at the core of any innovation, right? So that's a reality, and especially for a leading company like Intel, where innovation has always been at the heart of how they have operated. So what we are seeing organizations evolve was you're trying to put some sense of structure into capabilities that enable that innovation. Right? Fundamentally, what you want to do is innovation will come from an idea, but then it'll productionize itself and then transform a business or a market. But at the prior to it, what enables that is the enabling capabilities that an organization has. So as we work with organizations and companies, what we are seeing is that we're seeing by industry, every industry, we're starting to see trends around certain capabilities that are becoming critical for that industry to innovate and to sustain itself and to differentiate itself. So we do some work on this by virtue of the fact that about 87 million learners on our platform from across different industries. So we publish a report called the Industry Skills Report, where across companies in different sectors, we talk about some enabling capabilities that are core and important, right? Across all sectors, what we see is three domains of capabilities: business and technology being 1 and 2, and then the third one is, of course, the human skills or the soft skills part. So these are 3 areas. In the technology side, data, it's a no-brainer now. The data skills have become very critical across roles, right? It really doesn't matter what kind of a job you're doing, but working with data seems to have become a very important skill for people where they need something as simple as data literacy, or something at the high end where data is kind of an enabler. You want data architects and roles of that nature. Now, in order to build these capabilities, what we see is organizations have taken multiple approaches or different frameworks in enabling that capabilities, right? The simplest one is what we know as open learning framework, where customers tend to open up a learning platform. And in some ways, it's like learning is a benefit to the employee, and it's left to the employee to go and pick up what he wants to learn and how he wants to learn, right? But from an organizational perspective, the organization creates a framework. In some cases, it's like creating a catalog of courses or catalog of capabilities, which is mapped around some skill areas so that people can go and learn on their own. Of course, everybody has to do their, the day job that they are at, and yet pick up some skills. And we see in an open learning framework, more classical metrics are used, like number of learning hours people have spent, right? In some cases, some organizations measure the productivity or skilling in the context of how many hours have people spent. Some people have benchmarks around 20 hours, 53 hours, so on and so forth, right? So there are metrics that people follow. The second one is where, especially organizations, when they're going through a massive transformation, they tend to do what we call as guided learning, right? Where they are picking up core areas and they are linking certain capabilities to be enabled across the workforce, especially for, organizations that have been around for a long time with, fairly senior workforce around. Then they're looking at, a reskill as a core element of their strategy. And the way they do it, we see them using the context of guided learning, where they put context of, okay, everybody needs to be data enabled, or everybody needs to pick skills in these cloud areas, or, or some new technology or a tool that the company has launched, and you want everyone to undergo, learning on that. And you would measure most of these in the context of some form of certification, right? You will, at the end of those programs, you certify those people that they've completed. And the metric that organizations typically have used is how many certifications have you completed, right? So how many, we have so many people certified in data, so many people certified in cloud, and so on and so forth, right? So more, it also is used in guided learning, is also used in the context of compliances, right? There are many organizations where we deliver compliances, and you want people to know what the policy is, and you want that learning to be available. So that's the other area where we see guided learning and enforced guided learning coming into play. The third one is where we're starting, where organizations which have evolved a lot more in the context of taking that capability build and aligning and a capability and into roles and attaching skills to it, right? So that's the more mature framework that we see, where people have then attached to a particular role what are the core capabilities required and what are the key skills that define that, right? So we call it skills first learning, and it's we have some internal terms called skill sets that we define around this, and we typically deliver these around the academies that I spoke about earlier, right? So you take a functional academy or a technical academy or a data science academy. Under that academy, let's say I'll take the example of a data science. I could be a data literate person as my role. I'm at an entry level. I just need to be data literate, and that's all that I need to be. So I'll have my courses and skill sets defined based on that. Do I know how to read a data? Do I know, operating on a specific tool? Something as simple as there are 4 or 5 skill sets that are there, and then I'm evaluated on those skill sets. If my evaluation tells me that I'm below the bar of the proficiency that is required, there is an automated curation. A set of course courses to him. It takes them to the specific chapter or the area that individual needs to skill themselves, and then moves forward. In this, what we're trying to do is to, in some ways, keep the learner at the center. Anjali spoke about keeping the people at the center in the context there. Here, the idea is that you and me in the same job might have very different skill sets and very different learning needs. So the idea is to curate the learning to my specific job gap, skill gap that I have, which could, out of the 6 skill sets, I might be damn good at 3 and not so good at the other 2, and you might be damn good at the three areas that I'm weak at, right? So each of our learning, it should not be defined by saying that everybody has to do the same set of courses. So the first step is around level setting. Okay, what do I know? So we have a platform that allows you to measure your skill, so everybody doesn't have to go through all the courses. Then that lets you then get to the next part, which is to say, okay, here is what I need to learn so that I'm above the bar that the company has defined. It also helps in the areas of talent mobility, right? In the context when we talk about skills, we talk about people moving up levels of jobs. Now, within that, what do I have today and what do I need to get to is also visible to the learner. So it motivates the learner to not just become proficient in the job he's doing, because there is clarity in the skills that has been defined in the next role that he can potentially do. He knows what he needs to learn to get there. Right? So that's where we are seeing the evolution of this, and a lot of the organizations are moving to the skills first learning and moving away from open learning and guided learning. And of course, it also depends on the maturity and the size of the organizations. There are organizations where at a certain level, you're doing more open learning. At certain level, you're doing more guided learning. And another set, you're doing very skills level learning. So we're seeing a mix of these of late.
Thank you, Dallas. Thank you, Anjali. Those were wonderful insights. And it was really a very, very engaging session. And I'm sure the audience will really benefit from watching this fireside chat. With that, we come to an end. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pooja. Always wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, Pooja.